Before we start the video, please don't be a Baka and subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. I will assure you your little effort will help me a lot. Now back to the video. In a grocery shop, a boy takes a packet of chips from the rack, but the chips start to fall from it because it has already been opened. While he is collecting the chips from the floor, a child comes to him and asks if he is stealing the snacks this way, but he disagrees. Suddenly, an urgent news announcement displays on the TV screen, informing them about a low-scale earthquake that is getting bigger with time. Just then, the floor of the shop begins to shake badly, quickly shifting the waves to the racks, causing the people to become startled. Suddenly, the ground in front of the shop bursts, leading huge stones and tons of sand to fall above people, filling the place with loud cries and screams. The child who was standing near the boy stares at everything with fear in her eyes, while the boy leans over her to protect her as they sit in the shop, which is now completely destroyed, with sand covering everything. The boy asks if she is all right, and she agrees. As he gets up, she looks behind him and becomes shocked, asking what it is. Confused, the boy turns around to see a huge tower in front of the shop that has emerged from the ground and stands tall in the middle of the city. This tower does not only appear in their country but simultaneously appears in major cities in different countries, including England and Japan. Soon after, these towers are named the Towers of Nightmare, and they start choosing people as tower walkers, inviting them inside. The people who accept the invitation are teleported to a battlefield and receive the blessings of the interface in the form of money, weapons, and skills similar to a game. However, after spending some time in the tower, they realize that it is not a game. In front of them is a huge screen showing the area right outside the tower, where a rescue operation is taking place, and they receive a notification that the tower impact will start soon. Meanwhile, outside the tower, a team of rescue workers is busy clearing up the area. Suddenly, one of them looks up and tells his fellow to look at a creature standing inside the tower, wondering if it is a human or a monster. They decide to call the police. Suddenly, the creature standing in the tower clenches its hands and opens its mouth, revealing its sharp teeth. In an instant, the creature lets out a loud cry, leading to a sudden overflow of monsters from the tower that enter the Earth's surface, causing what is now known as the Great Disaster. Sensing the danger, the bells start to ring, announcing an emergency situation, and people start to run in different directions to save their lives. To deal with the ambush, army troops are called in, and they use tanks and heavy ammunition to fire at the monsters. However, due to their size and overwhelming strength, the monsters destroy the entire troop in an instant. As a result of this deadly attack, widespread destruction occurs, and 1/3 of the world's population is annihilated. Meanwhile, the people who were inside the tower could do nothing but watch the destruction occur. After the disaster is over, they all receive a notification that they have been selected as tower walkers who can save this destroyed world. Considering that there is a chance for the world to be saved, they decide to climb up the tower, hoping that if they clear the tower, this nightmare will end. In this way, people with special powers and qualifications become the last hope of humanity to accomplish their goal. The tower walkers soon start to raid the tower in order to stop the annihilation of humanity. After climbing up a few floors, they come across a giant stone that blocks the entrance to the next floor and wonder if they cannot go any further. They contemplate destroying the stone but think that using violence would not work. Yet, they still try to do it using their weapons. However, as soon as they start striking the stone, small pieces of it start to fall apart and shine brightly, making them confused. The system informs them that it is a regression stone that can help them return to the time they were summoned while keeping their memories intact. Considering it a wonderful item, the captain of the tower walkers takes it in his hand and states that he will conduct this experiment on himself and tell them about it. As he uses the stone, a bright light engulfs him, forcing others to cover their eyes. After a while, when they all open their eyes, they are surprised to find that their captain has disappeared for real. In the captain's absence, the rest of the team members wonder if he can come back to the tower again. Just then, one of their team members, a former science professor, states that things in the tower might be more complex than they think. He explains that their captain has returned to the past of this world, but because a part of the timeline got split up, he may not be able to meet them again. He supports his belief with prominent theories like the multiverse theory and the parallel universe theory, proving that their situation is the result of the universe's timeline getting split up. By saying this, he means that the captain, after returning to the past, has become a totally different person from the captain that used to be in their world. Hearing that, all the other team members are consumed with disbelief, leading him to realize that they will not understand what he is saying. In simple words, he explains that their captain has returned to the past, but because of that, nothing in their world is going to change. He states that, according to his knowledge, the items in the tower do have such powers. Holding the regression stone, he states that it will return all of them to a world in a split timeline, but it is not necessary that everyone using the stone will end up in the same split timeline. He is of the view that the items in this tower exceed the common sense of humanity. Meanwhile, outside of the tower, the second tower impact occurs, leading to another deadly ambush of monsters that further destroys humanity. This makes it necessary for the walkers to make a decision before the entire human population on Earth is wiped out. At this point, a question arises regarding whether they will use the regression stones and return to the past to save themselves or if they will remain inside the tower and fight until their last breath. In the beginning, the walkers try their best to fight as much as they can. However, soon after, they realize that they are no match for the monsters and start to consume the regression stones one by one to return to the past. After some time, only the last member of the group of players is left inside the tower, while all others leave him, stating that this is the end for them in this world, feeling hopeless about humanity being saved. He sits in front of a formidable monster, ready to be consumed by it. However, all of a sudden, a powerful person arrives from behind and uses his weapon to cut the monster into pieces within an instant, leaving the person surprised. Approaching him, the powerful person asks if he is all right, and he agrees. When he turns behind him, he is amazed to see a group of powerful people walking towards him, while the person leading them asks if all others have run away. Coming closer, the rescuers commend him for holding on until the very end. Realizing that these people are their real hope, the person uses the regression stone and returns to the past, thinking that powerful people like them never get tempted by the return stones. After he disappears, the captain tells his group to go ahead and starts proceeding, leading humanity's last do-or-die squad, the Carp Team. Despite their unmatchable power and determination, the squad is soon destroyed, with all the members lying on the verge of death. Looking at his comrades, the captain of the group, stuck under the stones, wonders where it went wrong. He remembers that a few moments ago, a giant scarecrow-like monster attacked them, and his friend ran towards it to shift its attention while Jae-hwan, the captain, leaped up from behind. In a coordinated attempt, Jae-hwan severed the head of the monster with his sword while Young-won, his friend, used his weapons to cut the rest of its body into pieces. After killing the monster, he turned to Young-won, asking if there were any casualties, but he replied that there were none and the injured squad members would be fine after a little rest. Looking at their team members, Young-won stated that at this rate, it may be possible for them to reach the final floor, and they happily waved. While waving back, Jae-hwan suddenly noticed a unique sword lying on the ground. It was a suppressing dragon sword that was imbued with the energy of the sun and the moon and forged in 1,000 days by the master of the 85th floor to kill a dragon. Looking at the sword, Jae-hwan felt excited to have gotten such a powerful weapon and thought that just like Young-won said, if they continue like that, they will soon reach the final floor. Up until that moment, Jae-hwan thought that everything was going in their favor, but when they reached the chamber of purgatory on the 98th floor, they faced a powerful monster. This monster, which spewed lava from its mouth, injured all his comrades badly and melted their weapons. While he stood still looking at the condition of his squad members, the monster crashed him into a wall, causing him to experience immense pain as he began to lose consciousness. He thought that it was futile, remembering his team members and his friend, Yoon-won. He wondered if all that they went through together was supposed to end like this. Just then, the monster standing in front of him opened its mouth to throw lava at him. However, before it could do that, Yoon-won suddenly appeared from its side and launched an attack, causing it to experience immense agony. He told Jae-hwan to get a hold of himself, landed upon the monster's body, and pushed it downward while stating that he could not kill it on his own. Just then, the monster turned to him and launched a fierce counterattack, leaving Jae-hwan stunned. After a while, Young-won dropped his weapons from his blood-stained hands and hung upon the monster's sharp horn, about to be consumed by it. Shocked to see this, Jae-hwan started to call for Young-won out of worry, but before he could regain consciousness, the monster turned around and crashed its horn into the opposite wall. Seeing that, Jae-hwan became overwhelmed with anger, got up, held the sword, and ran towards the monster with a fierce intent in his eyes. Feeling a movement behind it, the monster turned around, but before it could do anything, Jae-hwan reached near it with great speed and launched an attack. After some time, the monster lies on the ground, turned into countless pieces, with lava flowing out of its body. Struggling to regain his breath, Jae-hwan turns to Young-won, telling him to proceed further. However, he finds Young-won lying on the ground, badly injured and holding a regression stone in his hand. Seeing that, Jae-hwan asks what he is doing, and Young-won apologizes to him. Jae-hwan remembers Young-won as a person who never lost his smile even within this dangerous tower, because of which he was nicknamed the Smile Knight by the Tower Walkers. Realizing that the same Smile Knight has lost his smile for the first time, Jae-hwan turns around, telling him to regress before he can change his mind, saying that he starts to walk away while Young-won keeps lying there. Looking at Jae-hwan, Young-won wonders if he has figured out his intention and looks at the bloodstained stone in his hand, remarking that it is too shabby. However, he changes his mind and starts to climb up the stairs, thinking that Jae-hwan is stronger than his expectations and is the one who has convinced him to do that. Trying to walk despite his fatal injuries, Young-won thinks that it is possible to reach the top floor of the tower if the walker is someone like Jae-hwan. Standing by the window, he states that he is relieved because of the presence of Jae-hwan in this world and jumps down. Meanwhile, Jae-hwan reaches the entrance of the next floor and is about to open the door when leaves start to fall upon him. These leaves give him a signal of what his friend has done, causing him to stay still for a while and then state that they should proceed forward together. With that, he opens the door to the 99th floor and is surprised to find a snow field in front of him. This makes him realize that the challenges he is going to face from then on will be of a different nature. Entering the snow field, Jae-hwan starts to proceed forward, feeling cold and exhausted. Suddenly, pointed spikes of ice start to emerge from the ground, causing Jae-hwan to run fast in order to save himself. While he is running away, facing a lot of pain, a dragon-like monster made of ice appears from the ground, asking if he has finally given up. Standing in front of it with his body injured due to the snow spikes, Jae-hwan smiles and asks if the monster is tired from fighting him already. Suddenly, a massive blast erupts in the snow, leading to the beginning of a relentless fight between Jae-hwan and the monster. After some time, under the frozen bodies of gigantic monsters, Jae-hwan hides with a piece of cloth in his mouth to avoid making a sound. Meanwhile, the monster searches for him around, asking if he has started to play hide and seek again. Sitting still in his place, Jae-hwan remembers that it has been 10 years since he reached the 99th floor. Putting medicine on his hand, he thinks that even though he faced numerous challenges on the 98th floor, the level of danger on this floor is incomparable to any of the lower levels. Feeling a lot of pain due to his injury, Jae-hwan thinks that the boss of the 99th floor, the Ice Dragon, possesses a breath that came from the Forgotten Land. It is something that is hard to withstand even with cold resistance at the highest possible level. He thinks that his only reason for survival for such a long time is the pieces of equipment that were left by the walkers who regressed. He remembers the suppressing dragon sword that he found on the 85th floor and the ice demon armor that Young-won gave him. He then looks at the Flame King's bracelet he got from his fellow Han Seal and closes his eyes, missing all of them. Remembering Seal, he apologizes to her for helplessly letting her die and thinks that if he were a little stronger, it would not have happened. Just then, someone calls out to him, and he opens his eyes, feeling shocked. He gets transported into one of his memories, where a blacksmith standing in front of him asks if he is thinking of challenging the tower again, and he agrees. He states that he really feels like he can beat the tower this time around. Hearing this, Jae, the blacksmith, turns to him, stating that it is really a relief to hear that. Jae belongs to a village named Adipose that was reclaimed after defeating the 50th floor's boss, Altaminus. Although it was a place where dead or injured walkers came in every day, the people never lost hope. The priests established emergency rescue units to save the walkers who were no longer able to fight. Meanwhile, the blacksmiths in the workshops created free equipment for the walkers who fought for the sake of humanity. Turning to Jae, Jae-hwan states that he seems to be the last blacksmith in Adipose. In response, Jae forbids him from reminding him of that, stating that Jae-hwan is the only customer he has, and the supplies do not come from the lower floors anymore these days. Hearing that, Jaehwan thinks that this is something expected because there are almost no more living humans within the tower who can send supplies. Jaehwan thinks that he does not know which year it is, but remembers that there have been at least 10 tower impacts till this time and people are no longer being invited inside the tower. Remembering that, he turns to Jae and asks if humans have been completely wiped out from Earth. After staying silent for a while, Jae asks if he doesn't get bothered by walking up and down the tower again and again. Hearing that, Jaehwan remembers that at the place where the regression stone was discovered, there was a strange scribble on the wall reading "Tower within the tower, nightmare within nightmare." Considering that it could have been written by someone else and that he is not aware of its meaning, Jaehwan holds his head, stating that there was nothing special inside. In response, Jae tells him that 2 days ago, a woman called Grandma Hylene disappeared, leaving him shocked. Jaehwan thinks that there can only be 2 reasons for someone to disappear from the tower: regression to the past or jumping off the tower. He believes that Hylene, a skilled potion maker, and Jae, a skilled blacksmith, were 2 of the few support-type walkers that remained. Considering that he cannot let these talents completely disappear, Jaehwan turns to Jae, asking him to teach him the blacksmith skills, which leaves him surprised. Remembering that conversation with Jae, Jaehwan comes out of his hiding place and stands facing the ice dragon with confidence, while it asks if he is done playing hide and seek. The dragon states that no human has made it to the 99th floor alone ever since the tower was created, therefore it acknowledges Jaehwan to be an incredible human. While Jaehwan keeps on smiling, realizing that the last thing to acknowledge him is a monster, Jaehwan opens his eyes, turns to the dragon, and states that he will feel very empty after killing it. In response, the dragon smiles, stating that it is impossible for him. However, Jaehwan takes out his sword, stating that the dragon must not be very sure about it. Looking straight at the dragon, Jaehwan states that even the icy armor that it is so proud of has started to crack. Hearing that, the dragon opens its mouth, calling Jaehwan arrogant, and unleashes its deadly breath, directing it at Jaehwan, who starts to run towards it without any fear of being killed. After a relentless battle in the snowfield, blood drips down Jaehwan's body as he lies ensnared in the snow spikes. Meanwhile, the dragon stands in front of him and laughs at his resolve to fight till the end. The dragon states that even if Jaehwan persistently tries to hold on, in the end, the fate that he will face will be overwhelming solitude and nothingness. Meanwhile, the snow spikes ensnaring his body start to mold into the bodies of his comrades who hold him tightly, calling out his name. Suddenly, Jaehwan calls out to the dragon, opens his eyes, and states that it talks too much. With that, he breaks the snow spikes into pieces and charges at the dragon with his sword, leaving it bewildered. Looking at him, the dragon tells him to give up, stating that his skills are not enough to kill it. Meanwhile, Jaehwan remembers that because he started raiding the tower later than other people, he failed to acquire hidden skills in classes every single time. That is why he gave up on other skills and completely focused on the thrust skill, which he practiced again and again and killed over 50 million monsters with. With time, his thrust kept growing faster, more precise, and stronger, surpassing a simple motion and gaining attack power comparable to a hidden skill that didn't consume any spirit power. However, considering that his opponent is a formidable ice dragon, he thinks the battle will be tough. Realizing that more than 100 thrusts by him have only created a scratch on its body, suddenly, the dragon opens its mouth to unleash its powerful breath, causing Jaehwan to run away to dodge it. Barely dodging the attacks, Jaehwan feels anxious, thinking that he will not be able to win against them if the battle continues at this rate. Just then, the dragon lands in front of him, calling him an unfortunate human. The dragon states that if there were 10 more humans like Jaehwan, there would have been some chance for it to be defeated. The dragon reveals that if his race had not been fooled by the Dream Demon Stone, their fate would have been completely different, leaving him shocked. Confused about what the Dream Demon Stone is, Jaehwan asks what it is talking about. However, instead of replying, the dragon raises its claw to hit him, but before it can hit, Jaehwan runs away and leaves the snowfield. After getting out, Jaehwan closes the door behind him, thinking that it was a very close attack that would have resulted in his death. Resting his head against the door, Jaehwan remembers the words of the dragon about the Dream Demon Stone and opens his eyes. Having thought of something, 5 years later, Jaehwan finally succeeds in killing the ice dragon and clears the 99th floor, leading to an utmost increase in his strength, stamina, skill level, martial ability, and dexterity. Taking a sigh, he flips through all the notifications while sitting above the body of the ice dragon. Turning to the ice dragon, he asks what the dream demon stone is. In response, the dragon, which is on the verge of death, states that he already knows the answer and reveals that he will learn everything on the last floor. Just then, a unique sword flows down the dragon's body along with its blood, which turns out to be the ice dragon sword imbued with its breath. Holding the strange-looking sword in his hand, Jaehwan thinks that it does not look like a sword at all and wonders if it is a dagger. Just then, the blood of the dragon spilled on the snow rises up and forms a door in front of him, leading him to the final floor. Determined to conquer the tower, Jaehwan enters the portal. When the words written about the door change from 100 to control room, a few moments after entering the door, Jaehwan emerges from the other side of it. Looking in front of him, he is shocked to find countless screens displaying himself, Jae, Hyeon, and Adapose, his village. Looking at the screens, he wonders if this is what the current tower looks like and closely views the summoning area and his village. While he is gazing at those, he suddenly hears a voice remarking that he has finally come, while they were thinking that he would go to the town first. Hearing that, he quickly turns around, holding his sword, but sees no one. When the voice tells him not to be so tense, stating that they forgot to send an important notice, just then Jaehwan receives the notification congratulating him for being the first one to clear the tutorial game of World 294. Reading this notification, Jaehwan becomes shocked and confused about what it is. Suddenly, the blood of all the people that died in the tower starts to fill up the room and transform into a transparent water-like liquid, intensifying his shock. Just then, the invisible being that was talking to him steps out of one of the windows, stating that they would appreciate it if he did not sink too deeply into it. Suddenly, the liquid starts to rise up as if a storm has occurred, and when the person finally comes out, he remarks that at this rate, he is going to drown in his own emotions. The strange-looking creature wearing a suit remarks that it is a bit too late to inform him about the danger, but he should not be upset about it, since he held on very well for a human being. Meanwhile, the transparent blood starts to rain down on him in the form of huge droplets. However, the creature is shocked to notice that the blood does not even touch the body of Jaehwan, instead, it forms a shield around him. Looking at Jaehwan standing unharmed in the middle of the huge wave of blood, the creature remarks that he recovered faster than expected. Turning to the creature, Jaehwan asks who it is. In response, the creature states that they started to talk without an introduction out of excitement to meet a person who was the first to reach the 100th floor of the tower. The creature reveals that he is the Devil Beastring and the owner of the Tower of Nightmares that Jaehwan has just cleared. Hearing that, Jaehwan asks if there is still the main game to go through if this tower was just a tutorial. Laughing, the creature compliments his cleverness and states that before the main game starts, he has something to show Jaehwan. With that, he snaps his finger, causing countless more screens to appear in front of him. On the screens, Jaehwan views all his experiences from entering the tower to forming his team to meeting more and more people on their way up the floors. Looking at those faces, the devil remarks that these are some familiar faces that they cannot see anymore. Jaehwan also views himself as killing the dragon-like species with the help of Kohil and remembers that this was an unpredictable battle in which Seoyil died, leaving him in tears. This is followed by the memory of young Wan's death, which causes him to become overwhelmed. After showing these to him, the devil asks if these memories do not bring his sadness, rage, and regrets back, telling him to leave those useless emotions behind. The devil states that he will give Jaehwan a new opportunity and offers him to play this game again. The devil calls it an amazing privilege, just like the protagonist of the novels who can start from the very beginning with all their memories intact. This realization makes Jaehwan understand that it is not the end and that humanity cannot be saved by simply climbing to the top of the tower. He remembers the initial invitation to the tower, supposedly for saving humanity, and realizes that they were tricked from the start. It dawns on him that no matter what methods they try, it was impossible to stop the tower's impact. He realizes that all they could do was try to conquer the tower, and the idea of salvation for humanity was nothing more than wishful thinking. With this in mind, Jaehwan turns to the devil and firmly states that they know very well that he will never go back to the past. Hearing that, the devil bursts into laughter, mocking Jaehwan for still clinging to the idea of returning to the past. The devil then reveals that no matter what item one uses from the tower, nothing can send them back to the past. Shocked by this revelation, Jaehwan initially insists that there is a regression stone in the tower that sends people back to the past. However, he suddenly remembers the words of the ice dragon about the demon dreamstone and realizes that it was actually referring to the regression stones. Just then, the devil informs him that it was actually not a regression stone but a nightmare stone. He reveals that the people who used the nightmare stone were not sent back to the past but were trapped in a dream conjured by the stone. He explains that he came up with the idea of introducing such an item on the 77th floor when he noticed a race fixated on returning to the past. After processing this information, Jaehwan stays quiet for a while and then decides to believe whatever he is told. After a while, the devil asks if they should begin the main game and sends a notification asking if he would like to enter the main game, expecting Jaehwan to accept it. However, to his shock, Jaehwan instantly declines the notification, stating that the devil has helped him understand the true nature of the tower. Jaehwan declares that he is already in a nightmare created by the tower and will not remain in it any longer. Instead, he firmly states his intention to hunt the devil itself and continue climbing up to the next floor, just as he has been doing. Upon hearing Jaehwan's intention to kill him and enter the next floor, B-String confidently declares that there is nothing beyond the 100th floor, as that's where the tower ends. However, Jaehwan firmly states that he will no longer believe what the devil says, growing more resolute in his decision. Anxious to convince Jaehwan, the devil tries to reason with him, but Jaehwan responds by slashing his sword at the devil's neck, severing his head. With his head detached, the devil asks Jaehwan what he desires, offering to grant him anything he wants as a reward for his actions. However, Jaehwan calmly replies that he does not need anything. In response, the devil, with his head starting to re-emerge, asks if Jaehwan doesn't wish to return to his original world. The devil explains that just like the Tower of Nightmares was a dream, in reality, there was no tower impact on the world. This revelation leaves Jaehwan shocked, and countless more screens appear, showing him what is happening in the real world. He witnesses people going about their daily routines, appearing perfectly normal, and realizes that B-String is telling the truth. Meanwhile, B-String laughs at Jaehwan's expressions, stating that he seems to have understood his situation and asking if it is not astonishing to realize that nobody has died in reality. He remarks that the news of his friends and family being perfectly fine must be a relief for him. Just then, B-String realizes he almost forgot to show Jaehwan the most important thing and directs his attention to a screen displaying countless patients who lie unconscious. Closely looking at the patients, Jaehwan realizes that one of them is himself, while B-String asks if the reason for his surprise is his spotless appearance. B-String reveals that even though decades have passed in the tower, in the real world, it has only been a month. After showing him the screens, B-String states that Jaehwan will never be able to win against him, as the power gap between them is as large as the one between humans and dragons. Considering it a relief, Jaehwan holds his sword again, stating that if B-String is like a dragon, then he has already hunted one before. With that, he charges at the devil with his sword, intent on killing him. Sometime later, Jaehwan opens the door of Jay's workshop and enters in a badly injured state, calling out to him. However, to his surprise, the workshop is filled with cobwebs as if closed for a long time, and there is no sign of Jay anywhere. Realizing that he cannot receive Jay's help, Jaehwan starts to forward to weapon himself. Here, he calls that it has been 72 days since he challenged B-String but is unable to even leave a scratch on him, no matter how hard he tries. However, what is more surprising is the fact that he did not die himself, either, as B-String does not seem to have any intention of killing him. This is the reason why he feels determined to spend as much time as it takes to defeat the devil. Meanwhile, B-String, busy watching Jaehwan on his screens, thinks that he will have to hold back since Jaehwan is a very special product that he is going to sell. He remarks that as the cultivator, it is his first time seeing something like that. He reiterates the process of making his products by first choosing the strongest people from among the groups that enter the tower, which is done through the tutorial stage. After filtering them, the chosen people, referred to as the products, begin to truly grow through the real game, which is the secondary process of growing his products. However, in the case of a product like Jaehwan, who refuses to advance to the next stage, B-String wonders whether to simply kill him. He thinks that killing Jaehwan inside the tower will not destroy his soul but will harm the soul of Jaehwan due to the difference between them, which would enrage the harvesters. Therefore, he decides to raise Jaehwan flawlessly, sell him to a high-ranking devil, and repay the loan for purchasing the tower. Looking at Jaehwan on the screen, he thinks that he is such a special product that even the divine beings who do not deal with the devils have contacted him. However, he feels very annoyed by Jaehwan's continuous efforts to win against him and wonders if he never gets tired of that. He states that if Jaehwan listens to him and starts the real game, it would be much better for him. Wondering what Jaehwan wants to accomplish with his current actions, realizing that Jaehwan is never going to stop, the devil snaps his finger and disappears, leaving Jaehwan surprised. After a while, he appears behind Jaehwan, who quickly turns around and hits the wall behind him, injuring himself in the process. Feeling increasingly frustrated, B-String holds Jaehwan tightly and asks him to explain what he wants and why he is insisting on doing something pointless while ignoring his offers to receive rewards. In response, Jaehwan simply states that he wants to hunt the devil and enter the next floor, intensifying B-String's frustration. Looking at the state B-String is in, Jaehwan smiles, thinking that he has finally pushed the devil to his breaking point, and states that there is something he wants to ask. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Thanks for watching, the Baka Senpai.